Frontier is a line of division between different or opposed things.
Around 2,500 years ago,
most countries and tribes had extremely inhumane ways of governing, where the defeated were taken as slaves and forced to give up their values, cultures, beliefs, and religions. However, unlike others, the Achaemenid Dynasty took in these conquered territories and allowed them to keep their language, government, values, and beliefs. The Achaemenid Dynasty, which is a part of the Persian Empire, lasted from around 550 to 330 BC. At the time, it covered almost the whole known world.
The rapid expansion of the empire demanded more advanced ways of governing and taking care of their citizens. When Cyrus the Great, the first ruler of the dynasty, was forming his newly built empire, he had realized that the Assyrians had also tried to rule a diverse group of people. However, they eventually fell. From analyzing the empire, he had decided that having a good public image to those he conquered was important, so he cared about his conquered people regardless of their background or ethnicity, and had an effective government system to rule his diverse empire.
The Achaemenid Dynasty's leaders are an example of a frontier that is important in history because they had created a culturally inclusive community and they had an advanced administrative system.
The Achaemenid Empire was inclusive and diverse compared to other empires, making it a frontier. According to Galen Context, Cyrus's policy of generosity towards the conquered became standard Persian practice among the imperial peoples of history. The Persians remained outstanding in their ready tolerance of local customs and religions. Cyrus the Great was not as cruel to the people that he conquered as other rulers. Although they were his enemy during war, he tolerated them and treated them respectfully, unlike other rulers who were cruel and abusive to those they conquered. 2,500 years ago, having a leader as tolerant as Cyrus was a phenomenon. His policies were also influential to other rulers from different empires from all parts of the world. The leaders from the Achaemenid dynasty were able to create a diverse empire where people were able to share their cultures and religions without being shamed or harmed. According to fact site, through Cyrus, the Jews were delivered from their captivity and allowed to return to Palestine. Cyrus the Great freed the Jewish slaves and showed that he cared. This was so important because back then, kings did not think about the well-being of others. Most kings would capture slaves, abuse people, and focus on how much power they had instead of their people. But Cyrus did not harm his people. Cyrus was able to be loved instead of feared, which contributed to why he reigned for so long. After the death of Cyrus, Cambyses II became king. According to Llewellyn Jones Lloyd, Cambyses ramped up his plans for an Egyptian campaign. He augmented his Persian troops with mercenary soldiers from Babylon and Asia Minor, and he commissioned the navy forces to join his expedition. Cambyses used different soldiers from around the empire because he didn't want to just use Persian forces. He wanted to add diversity, so instead of having the same types of fighting styles and weapons, he would be able to add a combination of all different fighting styles and weapons working together to create an unexpected fight for the enemy. He did not care about their ethnicity or background. Cambyses just chose the high-ranked military officials based them off of skill. According to Achaemenid, Cambyses made presents to the Almighty God of good things, to Neith, the Mighty One, the Divine Mother, and the gods who are in Sais, as all pious kings have done. Cambyses included himself in Egyptian culture by praying to the goddess Neith, the goddess of all good things, which was done by many religious kings. Cambyses did not know much about the religion, so he listened to an Egypt high official named Achaemenid, who told him to pray to her. Although he was not in the religion, he showed his appreciation and participated in the religious kingly activity, although he did not know much about it. After Cambyses' reign, Darius became ruler. Ed Hodson stated that honoring an earlier decree of Cyrus in 519 BC, Darius granted the Jews permission to rebuild the Temple of Jerusalem. According to Munrankin, in Egypt, Darius assumed an Egyptian titulary and gave active support to the cult. Darius was influenced by past leaders of the empires and supported people who were different from him. Darius not only tolerated the people he conquered and people who were different from him, he supported them. 2,500 years ago, this was uncommon, especially for an empire as big as the Achaemenid Empire.
The Persian Empire under the Achaemenid Dynasty was an important frontier in history because they had an innovative and impeccable government system. When Cyrus the Great conquered Babylon in 539 BC, he did not change the bureaucratic system at all, but let it run its familiar course. Cyrus allowed previous officials to maintain their positions, allowing Babylon to continue its economic, civic, and religious functions as they normally did without any disturbances. The only thing Cyrus changed was appoint Gobryas, a Persian Khan, as the satrap of Babylon. As the governor of Babylon, Gobryas looked over it. He made sure it functioned effectively and followed the dynasty's values. The satrapies, which were governors in the Achaemenid Dynasty, ruled in the name of the king. The satraps limited the right of self-governance to any local leader, making sure there were no signs of treason. They also had some similarities to the governors of today. When satraps were designated to a province, just like today how governors in the US abide by federal laws, the satraps had to follow their king's rules. This type of government was so strong that it became the standard in the ancient world. After Cyrus's reign ended, Cambyses, his son, followed in his footsteps. When Cambyses took over Egypt in 525 BC, he allowed the Egyptian government to stay, just like his father did with Babylon. Not only that, instead of getting rid of pharaohs, Cambyses decided to become one, and he did his best to behave as an Egyptian pharaoh would. He did that to appeal to the local population of Egypt. Through his actions, Cambyses connected the Egyptians to the Persians. This was unbelievable for around 2,500 years ago, as it was uncommon or had never happened before. During Darius the Great's rule over the Persian Empire and the Phoenician cities of Tyre, Sidon, Abydos, and Byblos, there were local kings whose power was similar to a mayor in today's society. Just like how a mayor's power is limited by governors, the local king's power was limited by Persian authority, otherwise known as a satrap. This was such an effective system that hints of it are still used today. However, now the system is similar to our federal government. Darius I added on to the government system Cyrus used. Each province of the empire was governed by 3 officials: a governor or satrap, a military overseer, and a treasurer. The treasurer approved projects in which the satrap needed money for and reported to Darius. When improving on the government, Darius decided to keep the dual responsibility of the satrap and military commander that Cyrus implemented. Along with treasurers, Darius also added royal emissaries called secretaries of the king that were attached to each satrap, constituting the main administrative link between the imperial court and local governments. The secretaries were like the eyes and ears of the king. They made sure that the satrap showed no signs of treason, and they assisted them. In order to keep up with their growing empire, Darius took Cyrus's foundation for the government and expanded on it. He created an organized and thought-out system with more layers. He did this to make sure that the system was kept up to date with their empire. The Achaemenid Dynasty's kings are a representation of a frontier which had a significant impact on the world because they had a diverse community within the empire, and they were able to create a remarkable governmental institution.
To create a governmental institution like the Achaemenid empires, kings built off of what past empires and past kings had created. The kings also added good ideas from conquered territories' governments. This made sure that the empire was up to date and was the best it could be. In order for their diverse empire to function, the kings supported other religions and cultures to make sure they had public approval. To do this, they tolerated their conquered people despite their background, which was uncommon back then.
After the Achaemenid Dynasty fell, its government became the standard in the ancient world. Not only that, but for millennials, Greek sources have shown a bias against the Persians, making the Achaemenid leaders seem like madmen, not giving them the respect they deserve. However, recently the truth of the dynasty is unfolding, and it is now known how they were inclusive and respectable leaders. In fact, many leaders after them took inspiration from them, making it even more important to our understanding of history.
Till 330 BC, the fall of the empire either rose in power or stayed the same. Their government was stable until the sudden fall of the empire.
The Achaemenids' administrative system was so good that modern-day US has hints of their ideas into their governmental system. Even Alexander the Great, after conquering the dynasty in 330 BC, implemented some values from their government system into his own. 2,500 years ago, when people from conquered territories were treated poorly, it was rare to find such a large empire make those people feel welcome. The Achaemenid Dynasty broke the standards of 2,500 years ago by creating a large, diverse, and functional empire. In our modern society, where it is very important to respect others no matter what culture or religion, it is so crazy that a dynasty did that 2,500 years ago.